Gift giving, for whatever reason, never went smoothly in my family. We even dangled the award of the worst gift giver each year. As a couple examples, when I was 10 and my sister turned 14, I went to the dollar store with my mom and picked out this yellow sand-filled hourglass and gave it to my sister and said some poetic words about how I was giving her the gift of time. And she later dropped this heavy hourglass on her foot and broke a toe. For one of my dad's birthdays, my mom took my dad to a fancy seafood restaurant, and that's when he discovered he had newly developed an allergy to shrimp. Because birthdays and holidays started to become more of health hazards rather than celebrations, my mom conceded to saying that our love was enough for her. And my dad, once he was diagnosed with terminal cancer, just started to answer that time would be enough for him. I would tell him I already tried getting that for my sister, and it did not go well. Because of the terrible gift-giving history in my family, I decided for Mother's Day in 2018, which was the first Mother's Day after we had lost my father, I was going to turn our family's fate. At the time, I was enrolled in this printmaking class at school, and we had just learned the process of photo emulsion, which allowed you to perfectly recreate a photo onto the print using tiny black dots or a different color. And I decided that I was going to gift my mother a print of her favorite photo of our family, which was the four of us in front of the steps of the first home that my parents had ever bought in the States in St. Louis. For the second layer, I put a gold butterfly where I centered the abdomen of the butterfly over my father so that it looked like the wings were illuminating and protecting over our family. Now, the real kicker was going to be the third layer of the print. Back in high school, when my dad found out that I enjoyed poetry, he had grabbed his wallet and taken out a piece of paper and gifted it to me. In it was a handwritten poem that he said was back from his college years. It read, "To look into your eyes is to stand deep in the forest, surrounded by peaceful silence, shadows and sunlight and joy." So I remembered this poem and I was like, this is it. I'm going to print the words of this poem around the butterfly, and the words are romantic, and I don't think my mom knows this poem exists, and it'll be perfect. Best Mother's Day gift ever. I even told my sister not to try getting a gift that year because mine was going to be that good. So it's May 13th, 2018, and I eagerly hand my mother the wrapped print. She grabs it, unwraps it, smiles at the photo of the four of us, registers her fingerprints into the gold, and then pauses at the black words. "Is this your poem?" she asks me. And I'm so excited to tell her. Baba gave me a poem back when I was in high school. It was a poem he wrote from college. And I await her waterworks, but instead her expression flattens, and without looking up, she goes, "That's not your father's handwriting." I let out a nervous smile, just like that one. And I go, "What do you mean? Yes, it is. He wrote this." And she goes, "No, it's not." And I get defensive, and I find an old notebook of his, and I open it next to the print. And the longer I look at the letters, the less they look like one another. And at this moment, my mother proceeds to tell me very important information that when my father was in undergrad, he went to Germany, where he took poetry classes and had an American girlfriend. And up until this point, I had not considered why my father, who was a Turkish man and went to college in Turkey, would have written a poem in English. And before I can process the plausibility or pain of the fact that my father would have gifted me a poem either he wrote to his ex or a poem written to him by his ex, I realize that I have just gifted my grieving mother a print with the romantic words of her late husband's ex circling over her favorite photo of our family. Me too. So at this point, I turn to go dig my own grave, and my mom grabs my hands, pulls her heart into mine, and thanks me for the print. Sometimes I think about how I gifted my sister an hourglass long before I knew time would be so valuable to our family, wishing that I could have gifted time instead to my mother to spend with my father, or wishing I could have gifted it to myself that day to go make a new print. Although I will never know who actually wrote that poem, one thing is for certain. As of May 2018, I am the worst gift giver of our family. Thank you.